What's up everyone, and welcome back to today's YouTube video. My name's Shahan, and in this video we're going to talk about my 5 tips if you're restarting your property journey. Now, what would I do? So obviously I've been in property for a very long time. I bought my first house when I was 19, and I had no idea what I was doing. And the world was very different. Back then, property was theoretically pretty easy. Rates kept coming down, population was increasing, there was no world and bank drama. So much different from where we are today. Now, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but that's what I'm going to share with you. My 5 tips, starting with number 1. So number 1, I think the biggest difference between back then, 10, 15 years ago, versus now is just the fact of how difficult and expensive prices are in capital cities in Australia. Now, when I was buying my first home, Australian property prices in Melbourne and Sydney were very, very cheap compared to today. And if I was doing this all again, I would probably expand my zone of knowledge. I really only looked at the 10 suburbs I knew, or the ways I went to school or work. I looked at those suburbs and they were affordable, so I just got it done. But the reality is, Australia is such a vast country and there are so many suburbs and there could have been better options. I just didn't know any better. I just went to what I thought was good for my field of vision. But the reality is I should have expanded my zone into different areas. So if I was doing that right now, I would look at different capital cities, I would look at different areas, I would take more drives, I would expand my knowledge base outside the suburbs I've grown up in. Number 2, the second most important thing is when I bought my first place, mortgage brokers weren't a big thing, buyer's advocates weren't a big thing, investment firms and property advisory firms weren't really around. You kind of just, to be honest, I'm a bit older now, the internet wasn't even around. Nowadays, I think there's so much information overload and so much analytics that a lot of these larger firms do have more power in terms of data than you might do just because of the internet. And that whole concept of point 1 of expanding your knowledge, I would probably look to engage more advisory people, maybe mortgage brokers from a structuring, probably more buyer's agent investment firms. You have to be really careful because there are a whole bunch of scams out there. So if anyone's showing you a Lamborghini or selling you courses, be very careful. But there are some great firms out there that I think would give me a bigger breadth of options to choose from because it's so expensive in the areas that you probably know right now. Number 3, one of the biggest things when I was in my property journey starting out was the attraction towards development. And I found it so fascinating. Developments, building, townhouse developments. My mind was very skewed to buying big blocks of land and looking to develop. Now, I didn't know how hard that is. I bought property now that I haven't even thought about developing when my first instance was to buy and develop them. And so now we're sitting on some great assets, but they are debt heavy, large properties, not much good cash flow. I was very attracted to developments. And in hindsight, I should have been just chasing some basic properties that were very affordable, had good cash flow and good capital growth without stretching myself towards large assets. So my third point is all about not getting ahead of yourself. Property is a 20, 30 year game, 40, 50, if you're lucky, and you're starting young enough, you can do developments and fancy stuff later. Build some unit volume underneath yourself, build some good quality assets that are very affordable up and down in interest rate markets, make you keep them. Hopefully there's some capital growth and yield value there, but I'd be very focused on just buying 1 or 2 basic properties first without thinking about the 10 scenarios later. Number 4, the 4th thing on my list is really around the structure of your loans. Being from a Sri Lankan background, my family always said, pay your loans down, pay your loans, pay your loans down. So I've been principal and interest forever and a day. Interest only to me was a negative thing. In hindsight, I was good at managing my money, so I probably should have gone interest only. Think about interest only and your budget really early on and who you are and how you manage money. Number 5, the very last thing. Gosh, have we been through some turmoil. In Australia, property has gone up, down, left, right, all this drama. And I probably, when I was young, got sucked into the timing of the market. You really can't. My best assets were the ones I bought at the top because it was what it was. And I was just acquiring good quality assets. Ignore the madness, especially with information overload. When I was buying property, when I started, the internet was barely in existence. It actually was easy. I felt stupider, but I didn't feel overwhelmed. So ignore the hype. If you follow our 5 steps, I think I should have done when I was younger, was look outside your zone, engage experts, ignore kind of complex developments and fancy stuff. Think about interest only. You pile those all together and ignore the noise. I think you're in for a great ride. I hope I've helped. Any questions, please let me know in the comments. Look forward to bringing you more videos. Thanks again. Bye.